So the first thing I do when I start a drawing like this is I just measure kind of the I want to say angle of the photo, the angle of the face. So it's not always a perfect T on your page. It's going to be at some sort of angle if he's tilting his head in some way. So that's what I did, and then I measured the eyes. These were 3/4 of an inch each, and then 3/4 of an inch between his eyes. That's the way most faces are. Same length between the eyes as the eyes are themselves. So then I could kind of set up that with little marks. Then I started in on the eye. He had, and I changed the direction of my camera because, yeah, my hand, I'm left-handed, so it was covering the visual. Sorry. Um, then I started in on the eye. Now I'm doing the round part. This is pretty self-explanatory. I use the reference photo a lot in this area of the drawing, or this part of the sketching phase. Just make sure I get all the proportions right so that when I actually do go to shade in, everything is going to come out looking right. Started the second eye here. I don't know, I feel like the eyes are the most complicated part, or the part that takes the longest maybe, because from there on the whole face I kind of measure it by the eyes, if that makes sense. I also like to do the eyebrows with the eyes instead of doing them like later. I do an eye and then an eyebrow and then an eye and then an eyebrow. I don't know why. That's just the process I use. Nice thing about the eyebrows is you can just make a general shape, so it doesn't have to be too detailed. Now here's where I start kind of figuring out where the shadows are on the sides of the nose next to the eyes, and then I measure the distance from the edge of the eye to the edge of the face as it is visual there, to just kind of start the outline of the face. I also like to kind of play with hair a little bit at that point. Measure how high the forehead is, do that little curl that he has in his hair. Starts to give you a perspective of what it's going to look like when you finish. At this point, I'm measuring how wide the nose is basically in proportion to the eyes. I found this to be a good method, just like tracing the eye down to the nose and then doing a line there on the actual drawing, if that makes sense. And then also measuring how long the nose is. So that, because if you get your nose too long or too short, it's going to look really weird. And not at all like the person that you're drawing. Because best case scenario, it's going to be them, but younger or older. But most of the time, it's just not them at all. Now, when you draw the sides of the nose as you kind of want to, when you're instinctively, there isn't really that. It's mostly shading. So I just draw like the outlines for how I'm going to shade it. I don't really draw actual hard lines for the side of the nose. And here I'm sketching the facial shape again. And now I'm measuring the lips, how far they are from the nose. That's quite important. And here I'm doing the same thing I did with the nose. I'm measuring how wide the mouth is basically so that I can make it fit. And I think this one I ended up with my measurements coming out a little short, so I had to fudge a little here and a little there. But I think it's turned out all right. I think something I was noticing at this point was I was like, man, sure hope this actually turns out. Because it doesn't always look like the person I'm drawing. Lately it has, but I felt like this one just wasn't for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it was very straight on. So I had to make sure to get the mouth right. He's got that kind of a smirk which I struggled with. Here I'm making that outline for I'm making the bottom of the mouth, but then I make the outline for the little shadow under the mouth, which is quite important. I'm trying to make the outlines for the shadows on the lips here as well. Here I was just erasing all my lines from the initial T, and then I begin with measuring the distance from the lips to the chin, and then finishing that chin structure, which I will go back and probably redo 100 times. He's got kind of a rounder chin, or not chin but jaw than most guys, I felt like, but maybe that was just me at the time. I think it was rounder on one side than the other, and here I'm doing the ear, which was a little bit difficult, but not terrible. His ears lay pretty flat, so don't worry, I'm not roasting his face or anything. I think the proportions go well. Pretty easy to draw. Here I'm drawing the hair. The chin again for the 100th time. Not really. It's only the second time, isn't it? I was trying to make the lips darker in this one spot, or in between it, just trying to get more impression because I was not satisfied with the resemblance yet. The hair tends to be the funnest part, or should I say the loosest. Here I'm doing the neck because I thought, well, I might as well do the neck now because it's going to look better. And of course, there's that shadow beneath the nose and above the lips. Here I'm just making directional lines for the hair, which was pretty easy. His hair is pretty straight, not terribly curly or anything, so that made it pretty easy to work with. Making shadows under the chin or lines for the shadows to come. Again, working on that hair. Here I'm just working on the neck, the shirt line. His clothes were fairly easy to sketch out. Pretty nice. I like how it turned out.